know, nonstop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Yeah, I screwed up. I forgot that I called one. Somebody yelled at me because I knew the play that they were running. It was really the same play that they hit down the middle against us for a long touchdown. And so somebody said call timeout, and I did. And then the official wasn't supposed to grant it. They're supposed to not, which, anyway, it's not his fault. So they end up getting a 5-yard penalty.
So in that final drive, you should have had one timeout instead of 0?
No.
All right. Hi, Jed.
Hi, Declan. I'm very confused. Zimmer, he's not angry. A downtrodden is probably not the right word either, but
good word.
A defeated Mike Zimmer following the Vikings' embarrassing loss to the Cowboys on Sunday is what you just heard. The show is comments from YouTube. Your Vikings-related comments that will be read by Declan Goff, who is not just the executive producer of this show, but also the co-host. I am Judd Zolgad, and as all things Purple Daily are, this show is sponsored by our friends, presenting sponsors, Surly Brewing Company. Surly Furious is the way to go, but any Surly Brewing product is good. Check that out. And also want to give a shout out to our friends at TCL TV. Enjoy more with TCL. And as Dex said earlier today, I think it was on Purple Daily, if you happen to smash your non-TCL TV out of frustration after the Vikings' devastating loss to the Cowboys on Sunday, and you are now in the market for a new TV to watch the Vikings on, TCL is who you should be looking to. All right, Declan, comments from YouTube. It's your show. I'm just here to react, I guess.
Well, I mean, actually, I would motion it's the audience show, even though as much as I love to make, I love to take credit for things when it's time for me to take credit as the millennial that I am.
Yep.
But
you don't take responsibility.
No, I don't take responsibility.
You take credit.
Oh, responsibility. God, no. I'm the youngest.
I mean, somebody told you to call the timeout.
No.
The official, Phil doesn't help you enough.
No. I'm a messenger. That's Mackie and Judd's fault. Yes, this is comments from YouTube. This is your show. We read your YouTube comments. Thank you, everyone, for watching Ventline. We had our biggest audience of all time, so thank you so much, everyone, for consuming us late and hanging out with us late last night. There's a lot of comments here, Judd.
Okay.
From the game.
You know what? We can do this as long as you want, Dex.
Okay.
Like if you want to go 3 hours, we go 3 hours.
I know, and I know you would do that. I'm well aware. We'll start with David and JG here, who kind of have similar thoughts. David goes, so I say sell on the season. If anyone, and I mean anyone, offers me picks for Breeland, Sheldon Richardson, Garrett Bradbury, Rashad Hill, I take it. Also, love to see the Titans trade a 2nd and 4th for Alexander Madison or more. Now, I heard the Titans are working out Adrian Peterson, so we'll see what happens there with Derrick Henry's season likely over with. And then JG, too, Judd, piggybacking off of David's comment, says, football is a young man's game. Spielman, Zimmer, Kirk, Barr, Thielen, Smith, all need to be traded while they still can. But Spielman won't do this because this team is about fan service, not about winning. So, Judd, the trade deadline, what? We're about
Tuesday,
right? Like 24 hours away. We're recording this at 1 p.m. afternoon on Monday, the day after the Vikings lost to the Cowboys. What do you think? Do the Vikings hit any type of... they're not going to sell the farm. And that doesn't happen in the NFL. It just doesn't happen. Trade deadlines are kind of unexciting. But what do you think the Vikings do here? Do they make some type of move? Do they sell off some piece? What would you think they do by the trade deadline?
So I think that they have the possibility that if there's 2 veteran names that might be moved, I think it would be Sheldon Richardson, who, by the way, has been disappointing to me. I mean, I think we're now seeing why the Cleveland Browns allowed him to leave. The other guy who I think might be drawing interest possibly, Xavier Woods, the safety, who's on a 1-year contract. He's cheap. He's been productive. Had a heck of a revenge game against his former Cowboys teammates on Sunday. Do I think the Vikings will trade those guys? I really don't. I also, though, don't be surprised, and last night crystallized it. So the Vikings are going to say, last night was a terrible loss, but we're not done yet. There's 7 playoff seeds. Like, as far as I'm concerned, it's over. So what the first person said, I agree with you, but I'm telling you, I don't think the Vikings will say that. I would not be surprised to see them acquire a cornerback before the deadline passes, because Dex, Patrick Peterson's going to be out for a while. I know that Rick said that he expects him back after the 3 games he has to miss on IR for the Green Bay game, but come on. Rick sports lies constantly. You can't believe a word that Rick says. Patrick Peterson is a veteran player with a hamstring problem, okay? So let's get past this. Oh, he's going to be back. It's no problem. We saw last night, Bashad Breeland is not good, which we've known. Cam Dantzler, I think, can be worked in, but he certainly has his deficiencies. I think that there's a very good chance, and this is going to frustrate fans, and I don't blame you, but I think that there's actually a better chance that the Vikings acquire a veteran, I'm not saying a big name, but a veteran cornerback who they think they can plug in as opposed to trading away players. Personally, I would look to make trades. I don't think they will.
Yeah, I was surprised they didn't make a move for a cornerback before the game going into Dallas with Pat P's injury, right?
So was I, and I'm sure that the coach asked for it and didn't get it, right?
And look, cornerbacks are a premium, and, Mackey was against it because, if you're going to, just take a guy off the street or look for some slappy, as you love to say, with a 5th, 6th, or 7th round pick, well, like you can get that in his estimation. You can get that out of, a random Harrison Hand. You can already have that on your roster. If you are going to make a move, well, then trade a 2nd round pick. Trade something to go get someone of substantial nature. If anyone wants Sheldon Richardson, yeah. Like if someone wants a 5th for Sheldon, I'll take that flyer. I don't see them obviously punting and having a fire sale at the NFL trade deadline. Von Miller was traded on Monday morning. And just in general, as we said earlier, it's just the NFL trade deadline is actually probably the weakest of the 4 major sports when it comes to trade deadline activity.
It's better than it used to be.
It is better.
It's more fun now.
But I will say even MLB, the one thing the NFL doesn't necessarily do right, and you can have quotations among if it's even right or wrong, is the NFL trade deadline. It's just it's not an exciting time for the sport, unlike the other 3. I think that's probably the better way to frame it. It's just not an exciting deadline of moves. But if this team had lost to the Lions and the Panthers and they were,
well, then you might, yeah.
and then, yeah.
But they didn't last year. They were 1-5 in their bye week, and they traded Ngakoue, right, to Baltimore, and we thought, okay, tear it apart. Who cares at this point? Get your draft picks, and they stopped.
Right.
I will still say, I've been saying this, and it feels like it's not getting enough traction. I don't think for what we expected, Harrison Smith is having a good year. I would have looked to trade him last year. They will not trade him. I think the whole goal is for him to be a lifelong Vikings player. But tell me again last night, what did he do? Took a penalty.
Yeah.
But I mean, what has Harrison Smith done that says he's still even close to being the player that he was, which was a star player who was on a Hall of Fame trajectory? He's still solid, but he is, I don't think, anywhere near the player that he was.
Yeah, I don't hate that extension. It's fine because it's basically a 2-year extension. Safety is a position that ages gradually. So even if Harrison Smith hasn't looked like the player he has, I don't think he's been a detriment. I don't think he's been a bad part of that defense. But you're right. He hasn't been as opportunistic. We haven't seen that Harrison Smith splash play.
No, not all.
And that's why I try to quantify it and write that down, that this will finally happen. He'll get us big INT against the Cowboys. Still hasn't happened, and I'm wrong. And I admit when I'm wrong, and I'm held accountable, just like you are.
That's why I would have traded him last year, though.
Yeah.
His value at the deadline last year to a contender, I think you could have got a decent draft pick.
Yeah, I agree.
Now you can't.
A couple questions here from Bob and Truth Spader. Bob says, I have the same feeling today that I had after the embarrassing Josh Freeman Monday Night Football game a few years ago.
Yeah.
Judd, even before I get to the next question,
I like it.
What was more embarrassing, the loss in the Meadowlands of the infamous Josh Freeman game, or yesterday's loss to Cooper Rush and the Cowboys at home out of a bye week?
Yesterday, because this team was supposed to be better, but by the time you got to Freeman, the quarterback position was a complete mess, and the team was a mess because people forget that this team went 3-13. And then Peterson was great in, I think it was 2000. What was that, Dex? 12, and they made They made the playoffs. But the whole thing with Les felt like it was at times, more often than not, sort of falling apart. And the Freeman thing was it was atrocious. But as far as embarrassing goes, it's last night. Your defense is supposed to be the calling card of your team. Now, I don't agree that it is, but the Vikings would argue that. And you lost to Cooper Rush, and you made him look good. And, we're talking today, the national shows are like, oh, what Cooper Rush did, is this going to change things? And Cooper Rush. He plays a team with real defensive backs, and he'll be flipping burgers at Wendy's. So this is more embarrassing because that Freeman team and at that time, that's bad, but it wasn't shocking. It really wasn't. Sure. Last night should qualify. And it doesn't for some, and that's a shame. But last night should qualify as shocking.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. I mean, they're both embarrassing in their own outrights. Like that Vikings team, right, too, in was that 2013 or 14? I believe it was 14.
13.
13. It was 13, yes.
Yeah, because Mike's first year was 14.
That Vikings team wasn't good. There wasn't expectations at that point.
There was no quarterback.
Like, there was no QB. So, and honestly, if I'm being, and I can expose myself, I was all in on that trade because I loved me some Josh Freeman.
Rick Spielman loved him too.
Yeah, me and Rick might have been the only two guys that were conglomerating for Josh Freeman.
If Josh Freeman had been available in 2009 when he was taken by Tampa, and then, of course, at pick 21 or 22, the Vikings snag Percy.
Yeah. If
Freeman had fallen, the Vikings pass on Percy and take him.
Yeah.
They loved him.
Truth Spader says, as a Cowboy fan, I'll have to tell you, you have an inflated talent you have an inflated roster of talent. I was not impressed, though. Your team is really average. If Dak had played, we would have blown you guys out. Judd, if you can go back and Dak Prescott's not even fully healthy. Let's just say he was able to play yesterday with that calf injury.
Sure.
Would the Cowboys had blown out the Vikings with a healthy Dak Prescott?
Oh, yeah. They would have put up 38 points against that defense. And once Hunter went out, we were back to 2020, Dex. That was 2020. There was no pressure. So, yes, when you have Dak Prescott, Cooper Rush picked Breland and Alexander, who didn't play well at all, the nickel corner, and Dantzler apart. Can you imagine if Dak had stood there with no pressure, okay? So Dak, the calf is bad. He can't run and scramble like he ordinarily can. But if Dak Prescott could have dropped back in the pocket, especially in the second half after Hunter went out, can you imagine what he would have done? Yeah, I say they put up 38 points. You?
Yeah, I think they probably went big. Look, I think that Cowboys offense is pretty damn good. Kellen Moore is a good coordinator. They were able to dial up a decent performance with a backup quarterback who hadn't played football outside of 3 plays, in 3 snaps, I should say, in the last 4 years. They probably would have came in here and put a hammer down, and it would have been ugly. It would have been a lot uglier. It would have been a lot spookier on Halloween, too. So
the Vikings might have scored points, though, because the problem starting last night's game was, and this drives me crazy, the Vikings take a lead on their first drive, and the scripted plays look great. And then it's like Zim says, okay, Cooper Rush is their quarterback. Let's hold them off the board now. Mm-hmm. Like it doesn't need to be a high-scoring game. Like, this is the whole thing that goes against everything that we talked about during the bye week. Embrace the offense and engage. And instead, it's like, okay, we got our touchdown. Now what we're going to do is we're going to crack down on Cooper Rush. And you're doing it with guys that aren't that good.
Right.
When Pat P's been great so far. He's out, dude. This isn't that hard. This isn't like rocket science. It drives me nuts. Football coaches drive me crazy because they overcomplicate so many things.
They do.
And they're so wrong in their thinking because they know so much that they can't get the easy stuff to the front of their brains.
Well, it was so baffling on my end, and I believe Courtney Cronin from ESPN pointed this out, that I believe the Vikings blitzed Cooper Rush the least amount of times of any quarterback. They elected to not blitz yesterday at all. Yeah. And wouldn't it? And I guess the thinking there is, if I can put myself in the shoes of a DC or any head coach, that, well, if he's inexperienced and he's not capable, we don't even need to blitz him, right? We'll just let him make the mistakes. I would think that, wouldn't you want to just send the house on him and make life hell?
Case in point, Xavier Woods, safety blitz. He fumbled. Yes, you 100%. When Hunter came out, that's another thing. When Danielle Hunter leaves, okay, and your defensive line now is weakened by a ton because Danielle Hunter's a great player. Wouldn't you adjust it and say, we got to blitz more now? So you're playing a soft coverage from your corners to give CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper free catches, and you're not blitzing. So what are you doing exactly?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that an entire game of a pseudo-prevent defense? So, yes, I'm with you. And when Woods blitzed, he hit him. What happened? Not surprisingly, Rush fumbled. So, yes, it made, what you just said makes perfect sense. What the Vikings did made no sense. And it didn't make sense that the game was going on.
Couple of questions on the offensive side of the ball. This one from Disc Golf Details. I'm a fan of some disc golf. You ever play Frisbee golf, Judd?
I don't think I have. It was real big at one point. I feel like I don't hear about it as much now.
It's still a thing. It's a fun little game.
I feel like 5 years ago or so, it was talked about a lot.
It was. Probably I didn't speak about 5 years ago. But Disc Golf Details says, Kirk has to take more chances. I understand receivers are probably covered, but I saw too many safe plays. And Cody says, there were two things I really liked about the offense. The first drive and that 4th and 1 yard play call. Yeah. Other than that, it was a dumpster fire of an offensive performance. Judd, your thoughts on our two listeners' comments there on just the offense being way too conservative outside of the 4th and 1, which was a gutsy call, and I loved, by the way.
That's a great call. That's my call.
Yeah.
Like, I make that call.
I do that every time.
Like, if they had texted you and been like, Declan, what the hell should we do? You'd be like, that play.
Yeah. But your thoughts on the offensive performance being too conservative against the Cowboys yesterday?
I mean, they didn't use the bye week to do exactly what we said the bye week had to be about, which was transitioning to and embracing the offensive end and also saying, you know what, if we get looks from the Cowboys that make life difficult, we're going to have to adjust. We're going to have to find a way to score. We've got to stop with this thing of like throwing up our hands and being like, well, the offensive line was getting beat. It's over. The Vikings aren't the first team in a league that has a lot of questionable lines. Now, Dallas's is very good. Their offensive line's great. But in a league that has a ton of problems on the line like that, the Vikings aren't the first team to have this problem. And they still have Jefferson. They still have Thielen. They still have Osborne. Conklin, great catch on that goal route. Again, first drive. Yeah, it's way too conservative. And that's what I'm saying is it was almost like the Vikings got that first touchdown. They almost got a second on that deep shot to Jefferson, and then they're sort of like, okay, that's it. I went through the plays, right?
Okay.
If I can find ball possession and drive chart. I'm going to give you for the Vikings the plays. All right. So there were 12 possessions by the Vikings. All right, Declan?
Okay.
First one goes 7 plays, 61 yards, touchdown. Wow. The second one, you took the deep shot to JJ. It didn't work, but it was still 4 plays, 18 yards, and I appreciate the fact that you took a shot. After that, 3 plays, 5 yards. Next drive, 11 plays, 44 yards, but that was 3 and out, and Dallas jumped offside on the punt. So they gave you the ball back. If they don't, it's 3 plays. Next one, 4:18. Next one, 4:27. Next one that results in a field goal, 7:33 yards. But then 3 consecutive drives. 3 plays, 4 yards. 3 plays, 6 yards. 3 plays, 4 yards.
Yeah, dude.
And then you got the go-ahead field goal on your second to last drive, 10 plays, 36 yards. And then the last one, which was just a debacle, was 5 for 22. But, how do you go at a key point in that game, Dex? How do you go 9 total plays and 3 punts in 3 drives? Yes, the offense is way too conservative. It's not run well. It's mismanaged. And I've gotten the point now, I don't care who's at fault. I'm just done with it.
Yeah, it's frustrating because that first drive, and they've done this all year, the Vikings have been the best opening. I believe they've scored the most points of any NFL team on their opening drive in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
And for whatever reason, then once the play that all those plays or all those situations get into like that Bill Musgrave little play call that I mentioned on Mackie and Judd or Purple Daily with you earlier on this Monday, that it just seems like the play calls just get completely thrown out the window, and then
Kirk
baffling.
starts to check down.
Yeah.
And then Kirk gets pressured, and so he gets skittish. The predictability of what happens, which is why it drove me crazy when the Lions went into that prevent shell on at the end of the game that
right.
Joseph hit the field goal. What Dallas did last night, last drive, they're like, screw it. Let's bring more pressure. And what does Kirk do? Kirk's like, I don't know what to do. So, yeah. It's going to get fixed, but it's not going to be by these guys.
Judd, before I get to a few more questions here on our comments from YouTube edition,
I'm very worked up.
You got home late last night.
I got to settle down.
Yep. Got home late last night.
Yep.
And I'm sure, I wouldn't be, because I do this all the time after a long day. And it could be 1 a.m. or, even at 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. at night. I'm sure you might have cracked open just one extra beverage before you went to bed.
Oh, and it would be, in fact, I actually did this on Saturday night while taking in the wild game in college football. And the beverage that you're talking about is the presenting sponsor of this show. And my good friends down the street from us here, Surly Brewing Company. And yes, I did partake in 3 Surly Furiouses, which were all delicious. And if you've tried them, we appreciate it. If you haven't, try it out. Surly, all their products are great. The Furious is my personal favorite. And again, Dex, not sure if you saw it, but last night, we had people showing us their cans.
Show us your cans.
They were showing us. In fact, there was who was the guy? I think you retweeted this. Halloween costume. He had the John Randall face makeup on.
Yeah.
He had another costume on, and he was at the stadium with a Surly Furious. And this guy, what I liked was his night clearly ruined by the football team, but offset by the fact that he enjoyed a Surly Furious.
Yeah, a very smart man there. Well, nothing spooky
Great
about
costume.
that. That is just a great costume. It was not Dan Seaman. It was not our VP, as we may have thought it was.
He said he had a couple, though.
Yeah.
Surly Furious.
Yeah, I talked to him between shows. He said he did have a few. He had a few. So good for
Love
everyone.
the Surly Furious.
Everyone loves a good Surly Furious.
Absolutely.
All right, couple questions here on Zimmer and just the future going ahead. Justin says, greetings from Puerto Rico. Thankfully, I was on vacation and missed the game. But it seems to me that Zimmer's defense has gradually gotten worse since halftime at that Minneapolis Miracle game. This game has passed him by. The fact he is unable to evolve as a head coach is malpractice. And Rain Man also says, the most baffling thing about Zimmer is he doesn't learn. He keeps doing the same things over and over. He wants to burn clock, keep the games close, rely on kickers, but that strategy keeps burning him. How does he not figure it out and try something new? He has not progressed as a head coach at all. Season 8 looks exactly like Season 1 for Mike Zimmer.
Yeah, he's not changing. He's not changing, and that's why it's done. Yeah, that's exactly right. He has his principles. The other thing he has not improved at, and I thought he had a little bit last year, but I think I'm wrong now. His in-game management technique remains atrocious. I don't know if he gets too wound up in his defense, Declan, or if he just gets so wound up because of the entire atmosphere around the game. But the one thing that a coach has to do is slow the game down, to call timeouts, to run the clock or not run the clock. And Mike and PJ Fleck have 2 things in common. They love to run the football to the point of great annoyance. And the second thing is, in game, they're both terrible. Last night, so the back-to-back timeouts, big mistake, not excusable. That rule's been on the books forever. But the other one that got me, Dex, was, I think it was after the 2-minute warning. The clock is running down. Dallas is on the move deep in Vikings territory after the juggling catch when Breeland tipped it and Amari Cooper caught it. And Dallas, the clock is running, and the Vikings, with 3 timeouts at that point, don't stop it. Like, they don't stop at once. And it's like they're going to score points here. You know that they're going to get points, almost certainly. And the Vikings were content to allow the clock to run, which, of course, Dallas was too. So explain that one to me. Like, how are you not taking a timeout to stop that clock to give yourself some time on the other end for when you eventually get the ball back? Does that make any sense at all?
No, not at all.
Like, the clock's just running and nobody's stopping it. And they charged them for the timeout that drew the penalty. But the fact is that if the game had been run correctly, that one that was charged for the penalty wouldn't have been a penalty because You wouldn't have tried to call back-to-back timeouts. But more importantly, you would have stopped the clock on the front end there to potentially give yourself more time. So after Dallas did get points, you had more time to respond. It's just very bizarre.
Yeah, and the whole thing's baffling because, like,
it.
if I look at the first tenure or first half, I guess, of Zimmer's tenure, it was all about, all right, he had Matt Castle and then a rookie Teddy Bridgewater, and Teddy was supposed to be his protege and the one quarterback that he absolutely loved, and Teddy, even to this day, now he's with the Broncos, is still kind of the same guy. He's an effective, efficient quarterback who doesn't like to take risks and won't turn the ball over. And that worked for the Vikings because the Vikings were built around defense and being conservative and Teddy not taking shots. And then obviously the injury happens to Ted. And Case Keenum goes on the magic carpet ride, but there's always the horseshoe around Case with Zim. So then you get Kirk Cousins. Your offense evolves. Yes, you still have a very good defense around him when he arrives in 2018. But that defense then starts to wilter. Players leave in free agency. They age. They just aren't effective. And it's clear whether the Vikings have been good or not over the last year and a half, and obviously they haven't lived up to expectations, is that the MO of this offense over the last, and this is a good amount sample size, we're at like 25, 27 games dating back to 2020, that the MO of this team is offense. And yes, the defense has needed fixing. The defense isn't what it used to be, but the MO is offense. And for whatever reason, Zimmer has still not figured that part out and doesn't want to evolve and lean into that.
And if Hunter indeed has a torn pec now, and his season is done, and that looks probable as we record this, Declan, your defense now is without its best cornerback, easily probably its best player, right? Because Hunter is your best player, flat out, on defense, and he's one of your best players just across the board.
No doubt.
And you're without those two. If you don't lean into your offense completely, like, where's the rush going to come from now? Danielle Hunter collapsed things. Like, he is so important. And the problem is now, if you say, yeah, but we got Ev back, Griff, if you play him as much as they might have to, he's going to wear it down.
Yes.
He's an old guy.
Yep.
And so now more than ever, if Danielle can't play, if you want to give yourself any hope, because I'm sorry, but last time I checked, plugging DJ Wannaman ain't going to do it, right?
No.
You just traded a depth guy to Denver. So, yeah. But the refusal this year in particular with the skill set offensive players that they have, even minus Irv Smith, it baffles me. Like, it's one of the most bullheaded, asinine things I've seen. Because we've seen this team before not have great personnel. And you just don't. It's just not good. It's disappointing, but it's not good. And I think this is why Dex, especially offensively, players like Jefferson, probably Thielen for sure, are becoming frustrated. Because they're saying, hold on a second, we got an opportunity to help us win games. And you're literally still saying the defense will stop people. Minus Pat P and Hunter, you're not going to stop teams.
No.
You're just not. And quarterbacks now can drop back. And aside from the times that Griffin is fresh enough to get a push, but once they start to double him, good luck. Good luck. Danielle Hunter is an incredibly special player.
Yeah, it's a
and
big
if he's
loss.
done, it is a mammoth loss.
Mammoth loss. Last question here from Dana. He says, how will the owners be able to decide between Kyle Shanahan, Eric Bieniemy, or a college coach on the up and up? That's a very tough choice with a few strong options. You can see the benefit of choosing any of them. Judd, what do you've covered coaching changes, you've covered the Vikings before, and you know the Wilfs, I feel like very, very well as well. What do you think that they will? Let's say it's Zimmer's out by the end of the year. I'm not even going to go with the midseason firing here.
It doesn't even matter.
You're moving on from Zimmer. They start that process in early 2022. What would you think that they're looking for in their next head coach? Are they looking, Zimmer's the older guy and conservative and defense. Are they looking for a young and up and coming? Are they looking for a player's coach? What do you think that they would prioritize with their next head coach?
So in this sport, you will almost always try and find the polar opposite of the person that you just employed. So I would say that you just hit it. They're going to look for a young, up and coming offensive mind. I don't see the sense in 2021 unless you think the guy is just a gifted coach across the board, like Tomlin is. Like, I do think Mike Tomlin has his faults, but the guy owns a locker room. Players respect him. But if you are trying to judge a bunch of candidates who you like them all, but they're not like special, like there's not one, I don't see the sense in going defense now because it's so hard. And offense rules this sport. The league wants it to, right?
Yes.
I mean, they're throwing flags constantly. Your quarterback, Mike and Kirk, have given you a tutorial on how you don't want that relationship to go.
Correct.
Like, it's just been a flat out, you could put together a video and be like, this is not what you want as far as the relationship between coach and QB. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a young guy. I think it's going to be an offensive guy. And, you know, the sad thing is, because I know that there were a lot of Vikings fans in 2019 who, despite the playoff win against the Saints, feel this change should have been made at that time. I think it's going to be a Stefanski type. Same type of, you know, resume. So, yeah, I don't see any way. Now, I do think there's a chance that they would pay to bring in a big-time DC to help the coach out. When they hired Childress, so just to go back to 2006, Dex, when they hired Brad after they fired Tice, what they did at that point in time was the Wilfs actually checked around the league, and Chicago had just been to the Super Bowl. And at that point, the Bears ran the Tampa 2. And so what the Wilfs did back then was they basically said, we want a coordinator defensively to help Brad out, who comes from the Tampa 2, because that's the in vogue thing. It was sort of a fan thing, but it also made some sense. And they got Tomlin, whose contract, I think, as the Buccaneers defensive backs coach had just expired. They got Tomlin from Tampa because he knew all the intricate details of the Tampa 2. Mm-hmm. I think they might do the same type of thing. Now, it might be a veteran. If they go with a 34, 35-year-old head coach, I could see them going with a more veteran DC.
Right.
But I think that that's probably what they would do. But I think the person calling the shots is going to be an offensive guy. And flat out, you're going to have to, and this should be a given, marry the coach to the QB, if that's Kirk, if that is Kellen Mond, if that's a new guy, so that you don't have this just huge gap between the QB going up to a podium and saying, I'm not really in charge of timeouts. Like, you can't have that.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, I think they go with a young up-and-coming guy. You know, Kellen Moore is my dude. But and also, even though like I might be leading the parade on that fan club, I also want them to do their due diligence, right? Like, I want them, if Eric Bieniemy is the right guy, then hire Eric Bieniemy. This isn't Glenn Taylor. I will say this about the Wilfs. This isn't Glenn Taylor that, like, if the Wilfs are going to have final say, I'm like, I don't trust it. I don't, like, no, I
agree with you on this.
Trust the Wilfs that they actually will make the right decision there. Yeah. I really do.
Yes.
I actually could make a case.
Do you trust Rick? Because I'm not convinced they'll fire Rick, and if they don't fire Rick, Rick's going to make the choice. Like, this gets into a very dicey conversation.
Yeah, I think I trust Wilfs, but the problem is, like, I'm not unanimous like that, right? Like, when you say the Wilfs and I say ownership, like, yeah, I trust the Wilfs, and then you say Rick and I have questions.
Yeah, because I agree with what you're saying about the Wilfs. Like, I think the Wilfs, I don't like the fact that they are so afraid of being bad that they accept just being okay to good, but not great. But that being said, I'm completely with your Glenn Taylor point. Like, I don't think they're bumbling sports morons.
No, I don't think so.
So I'm with you on that. But I guess my question becomes this: what is the future of Rick Spielman? Mm-hmm. Because now I've got, he can't really identify QBs. I don't know. But I do think that the overall parameters for the search would be, let's go offense and let's go young. And don't be surprised if they at least sniff around the college ranks.
Okay.
I'm going to throw you a name.
Okay.
Because he's had a lot of he had a lot of success until this year. They're not doing as great, but he's definitely considered an up and coming coach, and I think he's eventually going to leave his place. Matt Campbell, Iowa State.
Okay.
I'm just going to throw that out.
Interesting
there.
Name.
I'm just going to throw that out there as one, because the process, I hope we're past the Childress year of, we got Brad here, let's keep him here and let's not talk to more people. I hope we're past that. I hope we got to talk to a bunch of people.
Yep.
But yes, offense to me will be the key. All right.
All right, man.
That's it. Comments from YouTube, which we used to do on Friday with Mackie, but now he's out, so we do it on Mondays. It's me and Dex. Back tomorrow. Purple Daily, Alex Boone, correct?
That is correct.
And then, of course, Realistic Randy at 11 p.m. Central tomorrow night as well. I am willing to bet that we can open up our mics and then close them. Realistic's going to have a lot of thoughts. Woo. And Alex Boone will too. We will talk to you soon. And again, thanks to our friends from Surly Brewing.